Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today we've got not a review, more of an overview and discussion about one of my absolutely favorite Kershaw knives of all time. This video is going to be a lot about this knife and a lot about why I think Kershaw is doing such a spectacular job through the end of 2024 and certainly into 2025. I have really high expectations of Kershaw. I think they're doing excellent, but this Launch 16, this specific version of the Launch 16 is a great example of them just being really, really great. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Let's talk about this thing. I have a full review on the Launch 16. And if you don't know, I think the Launch 16 is the best of the Launch series knives, period. The entire Launch series, which is their automatic line. These are Switchblades automatic knives, and they are made in the USA. The whole Launch line is really, really great. I will link this, all the variations of the 16, and the entire Launch series in the description. If you like automatic knives, if you can legally carry them and you know, own them, all of that, I highly recommend that you check them out, because as far as USA automatic knives go, there is no one that can beat Kershaw's. I mean that. Like they have really just established this special place where they are the king of this price tier. But the Launch 16 is truly spectacular. I'm going to tell you guys right now, making a knife in the USA, and I'm sure there are parts here and there that they outsource, but this is mostly made in the United States. And doing that, especially with these materials and this level of execution, is very, very expensive. So the fact that the base price of this, I just looked on Blade HQ, the base price of this, the OD green with the black blade, which is in CPM M4, that steel's not a joke, and the aluminum frame, right, comes in at $134. Even the more expensive versions, the all black one or this beautiful, the raw aluminum is so good. Oh, Kershaw, I love this. This version of the knife, $154. That is spectacular. I mean, they have room. Kershaw, please just continue to be cool with your price tags. Don't bump this up. But they have room to bump up and still be the best. Between 150 and 200, right? But they're not. They're just being great. It's amazing. The power of this knife is, in my opinion, it's a little bit, you can see the recoil there. This is a full-size auto, and it's got a pretty substantial blade, but it's got that recoil that you don't usually experience until you get up into your Pro-Tex and your Micro-Tex. Not all of the Kershaw Launch knives have that, but realistically, it's really only important that the blade is powerful enough to launch the blade into the open position. And the test I always use is, if I pull it back just a little bit, is the coil spring still pushing it out into the open position? And the answer is yes. But this one in particular, man, absolutely wonderful. The combination of the gray coating here and the raw aluminum with the little track tick inserts and this difference in texturing here really makes this knife pop. Right? Now, not everybody's gonna be into the raw aluminum look, but when they released this, I just thought, man, they have so much potential with this and knives that they do in the future. And I gotta talk about this. Something that people have been screaming for, and I feel like it's almost inevitable that they will do that. And the reason I say almost is because they're being a little bit reserved with this model. They're still kind of teasing us a little bit. They came out initially with the serrated Entanto blade. And everyone was like, wow, really cool design, but can we get rid of the serrations for people who don't want serrations? Because most people, if you didn't know, don't want serrations. Serrations can be very, very useful, right? The professional twine cutters are getting their fists up, you know, pulling their jeans up. Now, wait just a minute. Wait just a minute there. Did you try to tell me that most people don't prefer serrations? I'll have you know, I'm a prophet. All right, chill. It's fine. If you, whatever, for whatever your reason is for enjoying serrations, that's fine. But the reason that, take Microtech, for example, the reason that when you see the same model, right, and the ones that are left over after the popular model, like they drop a popular model, the ones left over are always serrated, that's not coincidence. It's because the non-serrated versions of these knives are simply more popular. Your preferences are fine. I'm not saying that you're wrong for thinking a certain way. I'm saying factually, that's just what happens, right? But most people are going to prefer non-serrated, which is why this particular knife was so celebrated when they released the OD green and black version with no serrations. They took it a step further with this knife and did a really beautiful raw aluminum and non-serrated gray-coated M4 blade, which is really cool. They're super close. What we need is a drop point version of this blade. There's nothing wrong with a Tanto. A lot of people are going to prefer a Tanto, but ever since this knife came out, people have been screaming, including me, please make a drop point version. And the only reason I feel like it's still a maybe is because Kershaw seems to be a little bit reserved in terms of dropping different variations of this. So I really, really hope they do that. This particular raw aluminum one would look great with a black blade as well. But I think that they have something really, really special here in terms of the overall size and length. I mean, you know, I've done specs in the other video, but I'll give you guys a measurement here real quick. This is what I consider to be a full-size knife, about perfect for what I like to carry at 8 1/4 inches with a 3.5 inch blade and just about 3.5 inches of cutting edge. You have a reasonably substantial blade stock, which I believe is something like 150 thousandths, perhaps a little bit more or less. We're actually going to take a look here real quick before I move on. Yeah, it's actually 155 thousandths, so a pretty substantial blade. CPM M4 is like M390 minus the corrosion resistance and plus substantial toughness. So when you coat it to increase the corrosion resistance, which is absolutely what's going to happen here with this coating, what you have is, in my opinion, a substantially better steel for the vast majority of people, unless you work in or around water, especially salt water, right? But M4 is really spectacular. It is much easier after days, weeks, months of use and periodic abuse. It's much easier to sharpen it and touch it up because it is much less likely to chip when it is properly heat treated. I have personally had a much better experience with CPM M4, and I think it's spectacular. I think the Tanto geometry on this type of knife, which is 100% a work knife, an outdoor work knife. I mean, this is something that you can really take out and use for continuous cutting. I did not say, excuse me, prying or hammering. Do knife stuff with it, but it's definitely a knife that's going to be comfortable and make a lot of sense when you're trying to do a lot of work, you know, cutting things that are, you know, more than just paper or cardboard, but rubber or, you know, plastic ties or wood or, you know, stuff that's going to create a little bit more resistance. You want a good grip on it. You want a comfortable grip, right? Especially if you're going to process a material for long periods of time. I think the geometry and the blade is really well suited. You have subtle curvature right there, and then you have the secondary edge. The downside to the Tanto is that every time you want to sharpen it, you're going to be sharpening two separate edges, which is not that big of a deal, right? But for me, I would prefer, especially if this was going to be my dedicated pocket knife, which is, it's hard for me to put myself in that position, and I know you guys know, you're like, you have 300 pocket knives, literally, right? So how can you imagine yourself in that position? Well, because before I did the channel, that was my position. I had like 3 pocket knives in my rotation. I was using a lot of them for, you know, long term. And a lot of it just comes from my experience with knives like the Para 3 that were carried long term. I just like the simplicity of a continuous edge, right? The Tanto does not offer me, it will offer some people a better advantage in some specific circumstances, but it doesn't offer me a specific additional advantage. I do like how it looks. I kind of like that cool, a little bit tactical, but in a more serious way. I kind of like that look. But when it comes down to the stuff that I use a knife for, I want that continuous curvature. And then I want the convenience of being able to touch it up and sharpen it easily. You know, as time goes on. M4, especially the way that I use a knife, and a lot of people use a knife, if you're like me and you're a regular Joe, a professional of nothing, then you'll take your knife out casually, you know, maybe a couple of times a day to do some simple cuts. So a knife, or a blade steel like CPM M4, it's going to be a long time before you have to touch it up or sharpen it. But when that day comes, I feel like the vast majority of people, you know, who pick this knife up would probably appreciate the simplicity and the ease of a continuous belly. That is the majority of what I'm wanting to say here, because especially for people, you know, who love American-made stuff and love automatic knives, which, by the way, if you are left-handed, you can still take the pocket clip and mount it over here for a left-handed, you know, carry. or proper left-handed carry, you'll be using your index finger to deploy the blade, which you'll have no problem with, as I'm a right-handed person and don't have an issue with that. But if you're really big into the American automatic stuff, I've reviewed a lot of knives. That's putting it lightly. I have 4,300 uploads on this channel, and I review an average of 260 knives per year. I don't know everything, but I have pretty good insight when it comes to pricing and comparison and quality and comparison, right? And Kershaw is unbeaten at this price point. Can you get a nicer auto if you spend more money? Yeah, but it's heavy in diminishing returns. It is really, really hard to beat Kershaw. So with their launch series, which is also spectacular in and of itself, and this particular knife being a really shining golden masterpiece within their line, I like to see them take things that I consider to be about 95% all the way to 100%. I think the Launch 16, there may be times in this video where I called it the Launch 15. It's hard to, getting what I want to say out and at the same time calling it the right thing can sometimes be a little bit tricky. But this is really, truly something special within the Kershaw line. And the reason I enjoy celebrating this knife so much is, number one, I experience a lot of the same stuff over and over again, right? So when something is really, really great, when something stands out within a particular price point, in terms of materials and functionality, execution, right? Especially when it's made in the United States, I like to make a big deal out of it. But also, I started this. Kershaw is technically partially responsible for this channel because my first good knife ever was a Kershaw. The first time I ever got turned on to the idea that some knives are made differently was with Kershaw. I had no idea. I thought a pocket knife was a pocket knife. That's how the vast majority of people walking around on this planet think. They have no idea until they experience it for the first time. And I experienced it with Kershaw. So to be here now with this channel, running this enormous channel, and being absolutely, in the trenches of the knife world, really in the thick of it and experiencing everything from all corners, right? It feels so good to be truly happy that Kershaw is still kicking ass, like still making some of the best dollar for dollar knives on the planet. Even when considering, this is the really special part of this for me, even considering their Chinese competition. That cannot often be said. And if you've not been here for the last 10 or 20 years, that probably made your ears perk up. What? Is he seriously saying that Chinese production knives are the same or better than American knives? Yeah, especially over the last few years, they have kind of, a lot of the really, really great stuff from China. It kind of makes a lot of what American knife companies are producing a little laughable, right? Especially if you're looking at the same price point. Usually you have to spend substantially more, hundreds of dollars more, to get the same level of quality with American knives. Now, as you continue to go up, there certainly are tiers that are super duper special, but again, those are so expensive that they kind of price the vast majority of people out. So to have Kershaw making some of the best knives on earth right around this $150 price point, even considering their Chinese competition, is really something that we should be celebrating. So, Kershaw, I think you guys are doing an excellent job. I love this. This is so great. I would love to see you guys do more versions of the Launch 16. If you don't own this knife and you can legally own it, I highly recommend this. This is it's way too good for the money, and that feels good to say because I don't get to say that often. Most of the time I'm on this channel saying this is cool but it's too expensive, or yeah, the price doesn't really wow me but it's fine, right? That's what I say most of the time because that's honestly what I think, right? So the cherry on top is that in 2024, when everything is overpriced, some of the only stuff in the market that doesn't seem overpriced is stuff from Kershaw, especially stuff from their USA line, especially the Launch 16. Love this. It's awesome. Please make a drop point version. Please make as many different versions as you can. This is really cool. I think people would even enjoy a smaller version of this, people who like the smaller knives. But anyways, just wanted to talk about this for a little bit. I've had this for a bit, and I wanted to make a video out of it, even though I've already reviewed this model. So anyways, I'll link this down in the description. Highly recommendable. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.